Put some lotion on my hands. Ashy. We up now. Okay. We up. Charlotte's Web. We on. Excuse me. We up. Charlotte's Web. I picked that up. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Please tap that screen. Tap that screen. Tap that screen. We up. Charlotte's Web. About to get it. Don't know why my colors keep changing, but it is what it is. Like my color keeps changing. Now I'm orange. Before I was like yellowish more. I don't know what the heck's going on. How y'all doing? Hey, it's Julie, Julian. Huh, I don't know. Thank you for subscribing. I know I tell you these things, but I'm gonna keep telling you that. How you doing? We're here to read Charlotte's Web. Let's get right into it. While we got a little energy. Oh, it happened all right, replied Fern. Charlotte never fibs. This cousin of hers built a web across a stream. One day she was hanging around on the web, and a tiny fish leaped into the air and got tangled in the web. The fish was caught by one fin. Mother, its tail was widely thrashing and shining in the sun. Can't you just see the web sagging dangerously under the weight of the fish? Charlotte's cousin kept slipping in, dodging out, and she was beaten mercilessly over the head by the wildly thrashing fish, dancing and dancing out, throwing. Fern snapped her mother. Stop it. Stop inventing these wild tales. I'm not inventing, said Fern. I'm just telling you the facts. What finally happened? Asked her mother, whose curiosity began to get the better of her. Charlotte's cousin won. She wrapped the fish up. Then she ate him when she got good and ready. Spiders have to eat the same as the rest of us. Yes, I suppose they do, said Mrs. Herbal vaguely. Charlotte has another cousin who is a balloonist. She stands on her head, lets out a lot of line, and in and is carried aloft on the wind. Mother, wouldn't you simply love to do that? I don't get that part. Yes, I would come. Yes, I would come to it. Think of it, replied Mrs. Arable. But Fern, darling, I wish you would play outdoors today instead of going to Uncle Homer's barn. Find some of your playmates and do something nice outdoors. You're spending too much time in that barn. It isn't good for you to be alone so much. Alone, said Fern. Alone? My best friends are in the barn cellar. It is a very sociable place, not all lonely. Fern disappeared after a while, walking down the road towards Zuckerman's. Her mother dusted the sitting room. As she worked, she kept thinking about Fern. It didn't seem natural for a little girl to be so interested in animals. Finally, Mrs. Arable made up her mind she would pay a call on old Dr. Dorian and asked his advice. She got in the car and drove to his office in the village. Dr. Dorian had a thick beard. He was glad to see Mrs. Arable and gave her a comfortable chair. It's about Fern, she explained. Fern spends entirely too much time in the Zuckerman's barn. It doesn't seem normal. She sits on a milk stool in a corner of the barn cellar near the pig pen and watches animals hour after hour. She just sits and listens. Dr. Dorian leaned back and closed his eyes. How enchanting, he said. It must be real nice and quiet down there. Homer has some sheep, hasn't he? Yes, said Mrs. Erbo, but it all started with that pig we let Fern raise on a bottle. She called him Wilbur. Homer brought the pig, and ever since it left our place, Fern has been going to her uncle's to be near it. I've been hearing things about that pig, said Dr. Dorian, opening his eyes. They say he's quite a pig. Have you heard about the words that appeared in the spider's web? Asked Mrs. Arable nervously. Yes, replied the doctor. Well, do you understand it? Asked Mrs. Arable. Understand what? Do you understand how there could be any writing in a spider web? Oh, no, said Dr. Dorian. I don't understand it. But for that matter, I don't understand how a spider learned to spin a web in the first place. When the words appeared, everyone said they were a miracle, but nobody pointed out that the web itself is a miracle. What's what's miraculous about a spider's web? Said Mrs. Arable. I don't see why you say a web is a miracle. It's just a web. Ever ever try to spin one? Asked Dr. Dorian. Asked Mrs. A- asked Dr. Doran. Mrs. Arable shifted uneasily in her chair. No, she replied, but I can cor cor crochet, I think it is, crochet a dolly, you know, and I can knit a sock. Sure, said the doctor, but somebody taught you, didn't they? My mother taught me. Well, who taught a spider? A young spider knows how to spin a web without any instructions from anybody. Do you regard that as a miracle? I suppose so, said Mrs. Arable. I never looked at it that way before. Still, I don't understand how those words got into the web. I don't understand it, and I don't like what I can't understand. None of us do, said Dr. Dorian, sighing. I'm a doctor. Doctors are supposed to understand everything, but I don't understand everything, and I don't intend to let it worry me. Mrs. Arable fidgeted. Fern Mrs. Arable fidgeted. Fern says the animals talk to each other. Dr. Dorian, do you believe animals talk? I never heard one say anything, he replied, but that proves nothing. It is quite possible that an animal has spoken civilly to me and that I didn't catch the remark because I wasn't paying attention. Children pay better attention than grown-ups. If Fern says that the animals in Zuckerman's barn talk, I'm quite ready to believe her. Perhaps if people talked less, animals would talk more. People are in Chris. People are incessant talkers. I can give you my word on that. Well, I feel better about Fern, said Mrs. Arable. You don't think I need worry about her? Does she look well? Asked the doctor. Oh yes. Appetite good? Oh yes, she's always eating. Hungry. Sleep well at night? Oh yes. Then don't worry, said the doctor. Do you think she'll ever start thinking about something besides pigs, sheep, and geese and spiders? How old is Fern? She's 8. Well, said Dr. Dorian, I think she will always love animals, but I doubt that she spends her entire life in Homer Zuckerman's barn cellar. How about boys? Does she know any boys? She knows Henry, Fussy, said Mrs. Arable brightly. Dr. Dorian closed his eyes again and went into deep thought. Henry Fussy, he mumbled. Hmm, remarkable. Well, don't think you have anything to worry about. Let Fern associate with her friends in the barn if she wants to. I would say offhand that spiders and pigs were fully as interesting as Henry Fussy, yet I predict that the day will come when Henry will drop some chance remark that catches Fern's attention. It's amazing how children change from year to year. How's Avery? He asked, opening his eyes wide. Oh, Avery chuckled Mrs. Arable. Avery is always fine. Of course, he gets into poison ivy and gets stung by wasps and bees and brings frogs and snakes home and breaks everything he lays his hands on. He's fine. Good, said the doctor. Mrs. Arable said goodbye and thanked Dr. Dorian very much for his advice. She felt greatly relieved. That was the dopest read. I did that. That's dope. Yo, that was one of my dopest reads. Yes, you are doing so great. Thank you. Thank you. That was a dope part. We did that. Make sure you tap the screen. We're trying to get to those For You pages, so definitely want to do that. Yeah, now? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Please tap the screen. We gonna keep reading. Got some music going right now. I've been, I don't even know what I've been, but I've been Ben. I've been Ben. All right, let's go back to work. Let's go. The crickets sang in the grasses. They sang the song of summer's ending and sad mon monotonous song. Summer is over and gone, they sang. Over and gone, over and gone. Summer is dying, dying. The crickets felt it was their duty to warn everybody that summertime cannot last forever. Even on the most beautiful days in the whole year, the days when summer is changing into fall, the crickets spread the rumors of sadness and change. Everybody heard the song of the crickets. Avery and Fern Arable heard it as well, walked the dusty road. They knew that school would soon begin again. The young geese heard it and knew that they would never be little gooselings again. Charlotte heard it and knew that she hadn't much time left. Mrs. Zuckerman at work in the kitchen heard the crickets and a sadness came over her too. Another summer gone, she sighed. Lurvy at work building a crate for Wilbur heard the song and knew it was time to dig potatoes. Summer is over and gone, repeated the crickets. How many nights till frost? Sang the crickets. Goodbye, summer, goodbye, goodbye, summer, goodbye. Goodbye. The sheep heard the crickets and they felt so uneasy they broke a hole in the pasture fence and wandered up into the field across the road. The gander discovered the hole and led his family through, and they walked to the orchard and ate the apples that were lying on the ground. A little maple tree in the swamp heard the cricket's song and turned bright red with anxiety. Wilbur was now the center of attraction on the farm. Good food and regular hours were showing results. Wilbert was a pig. Wilbert was a pig. Wilbert was a pig any man would be proud of. One day, more than 100 people came to stand at his yard and admire him. Charlotte had written the word radiant, and Wilbert really looked radiant as he stood in the golden sunlight. Ever since the spider had befriended him, he had done his best to up the live up to his reputation. When Charlotte Webb said some pig, Wilbert had tried hard to look like some pig. When Charlotte Webb said terrific, Wilbur had tried to look terrific, and now that the Webb said radiant, he did everything possible to make himself glow. It is not easy to look radiant, but Wilbur threw himself into it with a will. He would turn his head slightly and blink his long eyelashes. Then he would breathe deeply, and when his audience grew broad, he would spin into the air and do a backflip with a half twist. At this, the crowd would yell and cheer. How's that for a pig? Mr. Zuckerman would ask. Well pleased with him. That pig is radiant. Some of the Wilbert's friends in the barn wouldn't worried for fear of all the attraction would go to his head and make him stuck up. But it never did. Wilbur was modest. Fame did not spoil him. He still worries some about the future, as he could hardly believe that a mere spider would be able to save his life. Sometimes at night he would have a bad dream. He would dream that men were coming to get him with knives and but that was only a dream in the daytime. Wilbur usually felt happy and confident, but no pig ever had truer friends. And he realized that friendship is one of the most satisfying things in the world. Yeah, it is pretty dope to have some friends. um, Especially some like friends you ain't even got to be different around. You know? And you can just feel that they like you and you like them. I don't know. I was lucky to have some like friends when I was growing up. We might have fallen out in life, but I close my eyes sometimes and still think about the amazing times we had. Just because we were just cool being us. And I really appreciate those moments. I miss them. Boy, do I miss them. I don't think they'll ever even know that. All right. And let's see. Dream with him in the daytime. Wilbur usually felt happy and confident. No pig ever had truer friends, and he realized that friendship is one of the most satisfying things in the world. Even the song of the crickets did not make Wilbur too sad. He knew it was almost time for the country fair, county fair, and he was looking forward to the trip. If he could distinguish himself at the fair, and maybe win some prize money, he was sure Zuckerman would let him live. Charlotte had worries of her own, but she kept quiet about them. One morning, Wilbur asked her about the fair. You're going with me, aren't you, Charlotte? He said. Well, I don't know, replied Charlotte. The fair comes at a bad time for me. I shall find it inconvenient to leave home even for a few days. Why? Asked Wilbur. Oh, I just don't feel like leaving my web. Too much going on around here. Please come with me, begged Wilbur. I need you. Charlotte, I can't stand going to the fair without you. You've just got to come. No, said Charlotte. I believe I'd better stay home and see if I can't get some work done. What kind of work? Asked Wilbur. Egg laying. It's time I made an egg sack and filled it with eggs. I didn't know you could lay eggs, said Wilbur in amazement. Oh, sure, said the spider. I'm versatile. What does versatile mean? Full of eggs, asked Wilbur. Full of eggs, asked Wilbur. Certainly not, said Charlotte. Versatile means I can turn with ease from one thing to another. It means I don't have to limit my activities to spinning and trapping and stunts like that. Why don't you come with me to the fairgrounds and lay your eggs there? Pleaded Wilbur. It would be wonderful fun. Charlotte gave her web a twist and moodily watched it sway. I'm afraid not, she said. You don't know the thing. I'm afraid not, she said. The thing You don't know the first thing about egg laying, Wilbur. I can't arrange my family duties to suit the management of the county fair. When I get ready to lay eggs, I have to lay eggs. Fair or no fair, however, I don't want you to worry about it. You might lose weight. Well, leave it this way. You might, I don't want you to worry about it. You might lose weight. We'll leave it this way. I'll come to the fair if I possibly can. Oh, good, said Wilbur. I knew you wouldn't forsake me just when I need you most. All that day, Wilbur stayed inside, taking life easy. And the straw. Charlotte rested and ate a grasshopper. She knew that she couldn't help Wilbur much longer. In a few days, she would have to drop everything and build the beautiful little sack that would hold her eggs. The night before the county fair, everybody went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8. Avery lay dreaming that the fairies wheel had stopped and that he was in the top car. Fern lay dreaming that she was getting sick in the swings. Lurvy was in bed by 8:30. He lay dreaming that he was throwing baseball at a cloth cat and winning a genuine Navajo blanket. Excuse me. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed by 9. Mrs. Zuckerman lay dreaming about a deep squeeze unit. Mr. Zuckman lay dreaming about Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur had grown until he was 118 feet long and 92 feet high, and that he had won all the prizes at the fair and was covered with the blue ribbons and even had a blue ribbon tied to the end of his tail. Down in the barn cellar, animals too, went to sleep early, all except Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day. Every creature planned to get up early to see Wilbur off on his great adventure. When morning came, everybody got up at daylight. The day was hot. Up the road at the Arable's house, Fern lunged a pail of hot water to her room and took a sponge bath. Then, then she put on her prettiest dress because she knew she would see boys at the fair. Mr. Arable scrubbed the back of Avery's neck and wet his hair and parted it and brushed it down hard till it stuck to the top of his head, all but about 6 hairs that stood straight up. Avery put on clean underwear, then blue jeans and a clean shirt. Mr. Arable dressed, ate breakfast, and then went out and polished his truck. He had offered to drive everybody to the fair, including Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate and lifted it in onto the pig pen. The crate was green and gold letters. It said Zuckerman's famous pig. All right, give me a second. Give me a second. 1 second here. Let's read a couple of these comments. How y'all doing? Please tap that screen. Let's get to these For You pages. Show some love. If you can subscribe, we're up to, I think, 33 subscribers. I think last 32 subscribers. Thank you so much. We started with 27 today, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So we went up 5. And I'm super, super appreciative of the subscribers and just the love that I've been receiving with this journey. We got book club on Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be talking everything books related and a little bit more. That's for anybody who wants to guarantee a spot to try to talk about Charlotte's Web. We're going to be talking about Charlotte's Web heavy. I got to go to work. I love this story. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for sharing the live. How did you become so articulate in speech with How to read. Honestly, I didn't even know I was articulate. Well, I can give you a truth on it. I would mimic people. So I would watch how white people talk. I would watch movies that white people were in, James Bond and stuff like that, and I would mimic them as a child. And it just stuck. I just knew that if I got around white people, I just had to know how to speak like them. So I mimicked how they talk. They would use like their ers and like, like they'd be like regular or let's go there. You know what I mean? Like I don't speak like that. Let's go. Let's go over there. You know what I mean? Like let's go. What we doing, yo? Like that's how I talk. But I knew that that wasn't gonna fly too much with, you know, if I went to get a job or something because I couldn't read that well. So I would kind of, I don't know what it's called, but people said it's like I don't know, like I don't know what it is, but I think a lot of black people have done it throughout their lives. I used to watch my mom do it. Like she would pick up the phone and be like, "Hello, thank you so much for calling." If they're like a bill collector, she'd be like, "Yes, okay, well," and then she'll hang up and she's like, "Man, bill collectors, man, just." So I picked that up. I knew my mom would be like, "Man, there's just things you just gonna have to do to try to succeed." And I was just like, I couldn't understand it, but as I got older, I couldn't read, so I worked on my speech. So I worked really good at being good at speaking. So when people would talk to me, I could kind of make them think that I was intelligent, that I was, I could like if they talked about sports, I would just listen to what they said and then say it right back to them, and then they'd be like, "Ah, this dude know what he's talking about." Like they'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, man, who's a football player? I don't even know who plays football. Well, Saquon Barkley. That's Saquon Barkley, dude, man. He can definitely run that ball." I'll be like, "Yeah, man, he's fast. That boy, you seen him run? Man, he can run." Yeah, man. I used to love playing sports when I was young. I was like, "Yeah, I know, man. Sports when you're young, ain't that something?" And that's how I would conversate with people who weren't like me when I was growing up. Just they just want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want to hear what I want to hear. So you just tell them what they said right back to them and amp them up with like their type of dialect. Like, yeah, definitely, dude. I was so cool when I watched him play. He'd be like, yeah, wasn't he so cool? Like he runs so fast. I'm like, yo, he's so fast. Isn't he so fast? Just and they're like, yeah, and they're like so happy. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about this sport or the dude who ran. I just wanted to make sure I get up in this school or something, get in this class. Let me get up in this job. I just wanted the job. I don't give a damn about your sport. I don't care about who you are, what you got going on. I just want the job. And that's how I was taught. hmm I love everyone and being 100 who you are. You are intelligent. Never think differently. Yeah, I mean, I'm just only telling you, if you relax, like people ask me all the time, how do you speak so articulate? I'm like, because I paid attention to people and stole their dialect. I just listened to white people and I talked to like them. That's it. But I have many different dialects. I can switch into out. When I was young, I used to talk with a little more of a slang. But then I was like, that doesn't really serve me too much as I get older. So I was like, I'll get rid of that one and I'll just start using this one. So, but to tell you the truth, I don't know my real dialect because I was raised in a neighborhood that wasn't my people or who I was. So I was raised by Spanish people. I was raised in a Spanish neighborhood. There's a lot of Spanish people, a lot of white people, not too many black people. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That was just how I learned how to speak. So people be like, "How do you speak so good?" I'm like, "That's just the honest truth. I couldn't read. I couldn't do those things. I just watched other people and took their way of speaking." That's it. That's it. Like when I was around Spanish people, if I get around a Spanish dude, I'd be like, "Yo, what's good, Bobby?" He'd be like, "Nah, man, chilling." I'm like, "I'm chilling, yo. Where you going, yo?" I'm like, "I'm going over here." Like, "Yo, you going to the store?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the store, B." Like, I should just be part of their world. They'd be like, "Yo, how you speak like that?" I'm like, "Cause you speak like that." So I just mimicked you. And then people would be like, "Yo, you cool." I'm like, "Well, I know because I made you feel comfortable." Of course I'm cool. I just made you feel like this black dude can he can hang. You're like, yeah, I can hang. I just switch it up. So wait, so what did you search things on the internet before being able to ask AI? I don't know what that means. Um, you're doing so well. It's so hard to learn a new skill in adulthood. You have a lot to be proud of. I think I read that. But yeah, that's about it. I read Charlotte's Web. That's my way of just telling you how I became articulate. It's not what I use today. Today I use reading. So my intelligence is coming from reading now. Before it was just paying attention to people and stealing the way they talk, the way they walk, the way what they did, and that's how I became me. Like if you did this, I followed that. If you did this, I followed that. Now I do me. I read my book and I figure out how to figure my own thing out. That's it. And how are enjoying Farmhouse. I'm glad you are working and reading. Farmhouse was hard, really hard on the mental too. Do you speak Spanish too? No, I know a little bit of Spanish, like I know how to understand it and I can pronounce it pretty well. Well, from I was raised around Puerto Rican, so my dialect will be probably close to that if I was to speak Spanish. So yeah, but yeah, I know probably more Spanish than your average black person. I know Spanish music, like so I've listened to like growing up. I listened to bachata, salsa, merengue. How I listened to all that. You know, yeah, I listen to all that reggaeton. I listen to everything. Most people who say reggaeton, I grew up around Spanish people, so reggaeton. I could say it like it's Puerto Ricans I grew up, so it was reggaeton. It's like why? Like 'cause that's how I grew up talking. I just it was not hard, but when I was young, it was hard. I used to be like, yo, that's reggaeton. They'd be like, not reggaeton, man, reggaeton. I'm like, reggaeton. I used to be focusing, like, how I practice that. Like, oh, okay, okay. And they would like teach me how to respond to people, like, and just little things. So if someone gives, I mean, gracias, like, things like de nada, like, it's like, those were easy things. Someone give me something, oh, gracias, say things. I don't know. But it was because I was raised around them. No one taught me that. It's just my homies would talk it and I would pick it up. So that's how I picked it up. But that's it for today for me. We're gonna keep reading, and I'm gonna get up out of here. And we got Tango no dinero, Tango no di oh Tango no dinero, dinero. It's dinero. Okay, okay. I want about to ask because I'm still learning how to play bachata. How to play bachata? Yeah. How do you play it? You just put it on if you want to play bachata. I used to listen to Aventura, so that was my thing. Aventura was my joint growing up, so I loved Aventura. So nasty. Aventura. I used to be so hyped with that. I used to love Aventura. I still do. I listen to them all the time. Please check out Kwam Alexander. Thanks for reading to us. Thank you. Thank y'all for hanging out. But that was a backstory. So I'll see y'all later and check me out next time for a read. So thank you. Charlotte's Web. We read.